Good morning, dear listener. Welcome to 8.3 FM. This is Radio Waumini. I'm Victor Salamba. This wonderful morning. I am glad to be back on air, dear listener. Just thanking God as always for the gift of life, the gift of all of you, and just the gift of fellowship and the gift of family that God has been able to bless us with. And this wonderful morning, my dear friends, as we begin, this is the first Friday of the month of May. Yeah, the year is almost halfway, to karibu kwanza kuongea Christmas stories. And I'll talk about something that is very simple and we can all be able to adapt to, my dear friends. I'm going to talk about the 5 tips for healthier fights. A very simple way to fight, because let's be honest. Every marriage at some point will have to have conflict. If your marriage has never had conflict, then you are not married. Every marriage at some point has to have conflict because there are two different individuals coming together with different perspectives, different personalities, different backgrounds, different philosophies. And trying to merge these things into one, more often than not, is not easy. So then I'm going to look at how do you fight healthy? How do you fight healthy? Because a fight is inevitable. I repeat, a fight is inevitable. And I see people who get married and assume that you will never have a conflict. That is very, very naive. No matter how well prepared you are in terms of your relationship, you will always end up having a form of conflict. Because and if at all you don't know just simple things to make it more healthy, then my dear friends, things will always go south. So today I'm going to talk about just simple things to help you have a healthy conflict and to fight well. To fight well. Number 1, my dear friends, is this. Remember that human beings are all struggling. Remember that human beings are all struggling. And I like saying this, that people are messy by nature, and therefore relationships will also be messy. Don't forget that. So meaning that if I say all human beings are struggling, when I get into a conflict with my partner, I must understand something. Understand the fact that my spouse is someone who is imperfect, just as I am. My partner is a work in progress, just as I am. And during the conflict, I can see my partner as someone who is struggling and imperfect as I am, and in need of my support, in need of my understanding, and not someone who needs to be yelled at or fought. If I approach conflict that way, and my partner approaches conflict that way, then both of us will find a way to be more deliberate, to listen, to understand, and to support the other in terms of conflict. But more often than not, we normally have the expectation you expect your partner to be a perfect human being, but you're not one. So you begin yelling and shouting and saying, I expected more of you. There's nothing as bad as someone telling you how much they expected or how much you've disappointed them. The reality is this. You never married someone perfect. You're not dating someone perfect. And neither are they dating someone perfect in you. So you must reconcile very quick that when I'm in a conflict with my partner, I have to look at you differently. And I have to be like, okay, you are also just like me. You're struggling, you're imperfect just like me. And the same thing I need from you right now is the same thing I'm willing to give you. Number 2, this is very tricky. But anyway, have a fighting plan. Have a fighting plan. When I say this, I mean this. That if you look at history and you look at how maybe your parents handled their conflict, if you look at people ahead of you handled their conflict, maybe you're married before, how you handled conflict in the previous relationship. This will either make you want to handle the conflict you have in your relationship in a different way or in a similar way. But remember that you and your partner grew up differently and you learned to handle fights in a different way. How I normally deal with conflict is different from how my wife deals with it. Some people yell, others will slam their doors, others will shut down emotionally, they'll not talk, they'll give silent treatment, others apologize for things that they should not, they apologize, say sorry very quickly. People approach it differently based on the historical things they have seen in their lives. The key here, my dear friends, is this. Think about what will help you resolve your anger and choose to remain at peace even if you agree. Have a deliberate plan. That, okay, fine, tumekosana, we are fighting, it's okay, but I'm choosing this. But after all is said and done, even though we don't agree on this point, I'm choosing to have peace. We can still have coffee together. We can still have tea. We can still watch the movie you are supposed to watch. I always find it difficult when a couple has a conflict and the whole thing disappears. Mulikuwa date, mtu akasema kitu mbaya, date ikaingia maji. You are to go for a movie, someone said something, and it went south. That night, maybe you are trying to crack jokes, hoping that you can get into the mood. Someone said something and things disappeared. My dear friends, you have to have a deliberate plan. For example, if at all both of you handle things differently, you can say, fine, if I'm this angry, I prefer you give me 5 minutes, 1 hour, take a break. But my anger can go down. But I can do something that can help me to go down, I can choose to say, no, give me a few minutes. Or let me just write this down. Or let's have some tea. There's always have a deliberate plan on how to manage your anger and your rage when you're going through conflict. Personal management is key, because if at all both of you don't have a discussion, and I insist on this, have a discussion about conflict and how you handle it. Have a plan. Go out with your partner, sit down, have breakfast, talk about it. Say, next time when we are fighting, let's try this. Mimi na nyamazanga. Na nikinyamaza, give me time. I'm not quiet because I hate you. I'm quiet because I'm too angry to speak. Another one says, me, when I'm angry and I don't get out of my chest at that point, I might burn the house. So allow me to speak to the wall, but allow me to speak. Find a way that, honestly, when we are fighting, these are the rules of engagement. If you go to my Facebook page, I talk about the rules of engagement during a fight. Number 3, my dear friends, it is always more important to be loving than to be right. Always it is important to be loving than to be right. This is the biggest issue. And this is one of the toughest things in a conflict, but the most important. Would you rather be loving or would you rather be right? You might truly be right in whatever is happening. But if you express yourself in an unloving way, then my dear friends, what happens is that your pride begins to show, your contempt begins to show, and therefore you end up creating something bad. So when conflict is happening, your spouse isn't who you are fighting against. Remember, there is something that you have to identify as the real enemy. So remember this, that would you rather be loving or right? Meaning that I can be on the right. My wife can be absolutely wrong in what she's saying. But if I choose to be loving than to be right, then it is possible she'll hear what I'm saying. But if I choose to be right more than I am loving, then it's possible I can burn the entire bridge. I can burn anything. It doesn't mean that you have to bend so far, but you don't say what you feel. No. It means that you share in a way that shows your partner you still respect them and you still love them. That is very, very important, my dear friends. Number 4, fight the real enemy. This is my favorite one. Fight the real enemy. One of the funniest things whenever couples fight, and I see this times in my office, when a couple comes and sits at the beginning, at times some couples really go off, and they find the man and the wife are really going at it in the office. Who am I answer them is going, and they go. I can't even put a word in. Who am I saying? Who am I? And what I normally enjoy about this, and since I enjoy in a very safe way, is I listen through what they are fighting about. Now, when they finish and now they come to the realization that, we're in someone else's office, and they have seen officially how we fight, I always ask them a question. What is it really that you're fighting about? I tell them, because you began talking about your husband coming in late. And now we have ended by you talking about your husband gives money to his mother. Or you began by arguing that your wife does not listen. But now at the very end of it, you're saying that she doesn't cook well. What is really the issue? More often than not, many couples, you find that what they begin fighting about is not where they conclude. Every time you find a couple, if you find yourself with your partner, mumeenda, stop for a minute. Julize, by the way, point ilikuwa nini? What was the point? Utapata that more often than not, you have lost the trajectory, and now you're talking about your grandmother. You are fighting about your late grandmother, who at her funeral, someone didn't buy, your spouse forgot to buy a lesson. Na mulianzia wapi? Mulianzia an SMS you saw on their phone. My dear friends, fight the real enemy. Your spouse is not the enemy. Deal with the thing that is affecting your relationship. Deal with that thing directly. If you're talking about a cup, it's a cup. If you're talking about lateness, it is lateness. If it's talking about infidelity, talk about the infidelity. Don't begin to drag the whole village into it. Fight the real enemy. But the enemy is not your spouse. It can be what your spouse has done. but address the thing that has been done. That is always very important, and many couples don't get that. Number 5, be open to leadership. In other words, seek mentorship. Find couples who you admire. Find people who you can talk to. I always find it so funny and so naive at times when I hear people saying that marriage cannot be cannot be taught. When I hear people saying that marriage, you don't need anyone to tell you how to deal with your marriage. You are absolutely crazy. Because you always need someone to look in from the outside with an independent eye and to guide you. Find couples who are ahead of you, who have been where you have been before. Look for someone who can mentor you and walk with you. Don't be afraid to seek some form of leadership. Because after all, if you don't have wisdom passed down to you, and this is the funniest thing I always find, is that I don't find couples, and I say this every time, I don't see couples who sit down together and say, no, I have someone I know who I talk to about marriage. You might not talk to the same person, but bring your philosophies together. Say that my mentor told me that in marriage, a man should do like this. And this person says, no, I differ with that. Your partner says that. Your partner says, I was told in marriage, a woman should do this. And you have a discussion about it. Basically, what you're saying is that you're bringing in wisdom from outside because my dear friend Albert Einstein, I believe, was a very clever fellow. And he said, you cannot solve a problem at the same level you have created it. And it's good, my dear friends, to seek wisdom. It's very difficult to find a woman sitting down with her mother or even her mother-in-law and asking her, how did you survive marriage? Yes, we are in different times, but some things are constant. How did you survive in marriage? How did you make it work? Tell me things that if you went back in time, you'd do differently. Look for the positive things, not the negative things she tells you. If I knew, I'd not have married this fellow. No. Men asking their dads, what happened? Tell me about marriage. What can I do? What can I not do? Even though your dad had a divorce, listen to him. If he tells you marriage is false, marriage is a bad thing, ask him why. Understand from his perspective why he's saying that. His reason why he thinks marriage is bad can be the reason why you can be the reason you use to make yours better. How often do we sit at the feet of those who have gone ahead of us? And this is a bonus tip, my dear friend. This is a bonus. I'm in a good mood today. This is a bonus. Fight naked. This is bonus. Yes. I do this practically with many couples, not practically, but practically, that I send them to go do it practically. And one of the hardest things you actually find is this, is that it's so hard to fight and argue and be mad at each other when you're standing in front of each other completely naked. This is for marriage only. This is good, I remember that. Yes, this is for marriage only. The context is for marriage. Yes. But it's very difficult, more often than not, and the couples I've sent to this exercise always come back with good results. It is difficult to be fighting and to be angry when you're standing in front of someone completely naked. This is a bonus tip, my dear friends. Because even as I'm laughing when I'm saying this, life sometimes doesn't need to be so serious. Life at times doesn't need to be so serious. And any chance you get to laugh in the face of stress and let things go, the better off you will be. That is why I've given the bonus tip. There are times it's never that serious. At times, too, a bit of laughter would go a long way. I'm Victor Salamba, this is 88.3 FM.